Hello, everyone. Um, I am Jedd. A bit of background about me: I'm a computer science graduate, hobbyist game developer, and I've previously worked on evacuation simulation as part of my undergraduate project using Speckle, and that was before joining the Speckle team a couple of months ago. And I'm here with Izzy. Izzy, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. I'm a software engineer here at Speckle. Previously a mechanical engineer in building engineering. And yeah, working mostly on desktop stuff and Python stuff at the moment at Speckle.
Excellent. So, this talk today is about exploring immersive real-time Archvis using Speckle. And yeah, really the focus is on modern Archviz solutions and how Speckle's facilitating it. And we're going to show some demos of Unreal and SketchUp a bit later as well. So um, the core purpose behind architectural visualization is to use visual communication to illustrate what words cannot. As a tool for communication, the more visual and next word is immersive, you can be, the easier it is for people to understand what you're trying to communicate. And visual communication is so effective because it's a way of delivering information that is native to our brain's ability to understand. And so this leads us to the next part of the talk, which is about modern Archviz, where we're going to look at some other trends in modern Archviz and the direction that the industry is heading. And probably the biggest trend in this industry has been in the last 3 to 5 years, and that's the advancements in real-time rendering technology. So it used to be that super high quality renders would take weeks to render, and then kind of hours, and then days. But now we've kind of reached the point where real-time rendering is very achievable. We're seeing kind of the major force behind this industry shift is in video game engines. So other industries such as the automotive industry, the film industry, and Archviz industries kind of identified that video game graphics were getting to the point where they were almost as good as the renders that they were producing. And obviously with the benefit of render times being a 10th, a 20th of what they were normally expecting. And so we've seen companies such as Unreal and Unity, who make video game engines, kind of shift their focus away from being strictly a video game engine and more into other industries, such as film, Archviz, and being a product for all, really, just being a multi-purpose real-time rendering tool. So here's an example from a film set where we've got a few actors in front of what looks to be a green screen, but it's not. It's actually a projected display with a real-time rendered scene. And so kind of real-time rendering is good enough now that the film industry is embracing it. And it's definitely good enough now for the Archviz industry. So Epic Games, the company behind Unreal, commissioned a survey a few years back about the industry's perception of real-time rendering. And this survey targeted members of the Archviz community of film and animation and of live broadcast. And it became overwhelmingly apparent about how real-time rendering affects the cost of Archviz and the cost of creating Archviz. And so that was kind of the major factor behind the industry's perception of Archviz is something that's expensive to produce, it's costly to integrate into workflows, and it's a specialist kind of industry. Well, kind of the three main costs associated with Archviz is the cost of adoption, of creation, and of development. And adoption is kind of what software should we be using for Archviz? How does it fit into our workflows? When do we use what tool? How do we use the tools and learning new softwares? Cost of creation is the artistic process, converting models between different formats to get it into your Archviz software, figure out how you're updating with changes, manual processing of models to make them look nice with rendering, so like lights, tweaking UVs, textured materials, shadows, render settings, post-processing. It's a very specialist task and it's a very manual task. And the cost of development mostly applies to software developers building out their own tools with Archvis. So like we're thinking of VR and extended reality, so custom tools, animation tools, but also like non-developers creating custom Dynamo scripts, procedural materials, and kind of simple animation tools that can be shared across projects. And so Speckle, how does Speckle come into this? Speckle kind of addresses all 3 points in a few different ways that hopefully become apparent. For the cost of adoption, kind of Speckle integrates now with 3 of the major Archvis tools, Unity, Unreal, and Blender, and we're kind of considering expanding that. It's only going to grow into using other tools as well. And I think for the major selling point behind Speckle is if you're already using Speckle, integrating into Archvis is much easier, and it's kind of the same workflow regardless of what Archvis tools you're using. It makes it much easier and faster to switch. So say you're adopting Unity and then you want to change to Unreal, right? Without Speckle, that process would be a case of completely scrapping our workflows, kind of remanaging it, figuring out what software we can use, how can we do this. But with Speckle, it's the same workflow. So the cost of change is a lot cheaper as well. For the cost of creation, for artists, Speckle makes it easier to track and receive changes to a stream, so they can manage the version history and we're currently experimenting with automatic ways of updating your rendering and sequences. So automation is a big selling point, and I think the cost of development as well is probably where we're hitting the biggest benefit, and that is providing a fully open ecosystem. Developers have full control over the data they send and how they receive it, how it's handled, and how it integrates with their custom applications. When you look at something like Datasmith, which is Unreal's interoperability format for BIM, it's a very prescriptivist mentality of like, this is how your data should look like, this is how it gets converted, and if you want different from that, then you're on your own, right? So hopefully with Speckle, we're taking a much more facilitating approach to extensibility. Quick background for those who perhaps aren't in the Archvis industry, and that is kind of what are these tools I've been talking about, Unreal, Unity, and Blender. And I think Unreal and Unity traditionally were video games, a video game engine, so for creating and developing video games. And they've always had a focus on kind of computer game graphics. And in the last couple of years, they've shifted now to being a general purpose real-time rendering engine for everyone, just because so many other industries want this technology as well. With Blender, it has a history of being a more traditional rendering engine, taking slow but very beautiful path traced renderings. But now with their new EV engine, we can see real-time rendering becoming a norm in even the highest of ended animations. So we're going to give a quick demo of how Speckle works with Unreal and how it could perhaps integrate with some of your workflows. How do we get out of this? There we are. Okay, so how's it going so far, Izzy?
Very well said. Let's have a look at this beautifully rendered model.
Okay, so here I've got a test stream that we found in Unreal, and I've set it up with a few lights and a scene, and we have a camera sequence.
And just for context, this is a model from the SketchUp warehouse, which we will see more about in just a few moments. But this has been received into Unreal from SketchUp.
Yeah. So yeah, this is a be a demo of the SketchUp to Unreal process, but it applies also to the other connectors as well. So yeah, we got this simple, just quick animation path that could be done as a fixed render, so outputting to a video, or it could be kind of shown as a real-time demonstration. So you're on a call to a client or whatever, and you want to show them their design. This is kind of where Unreal shines in terms of real-time rendered. So what we're going to do is Izzy's going to make a change in SketchUp to this model, and she's going to push it to Speckle, and we're going to receive it in our animation in Unreal, and kind of hopefully show how streamlined this process is. So Izzy started screen sharing now. Hopefully it's the...
So you can double click on any screen to pin it if you want as a viewer, or you can unpin everything if you want to see all 4 screens at the same size. So take your pick. But yeah, small announcement, I guess, but we are working on a SketchUp connector, and this is the first time we're live demoing it to an audience. And so here as the example, this, as I said, this is just a random model we found on the warehouse. And here is the Speckle connector for SketchUp. So at the moment, it is mostly just exporting out. So blocks, components, groups, all that with all the meshes will go out perfectly fine. Meshes and generic objects like polygons, lines, stuff like that will come in as well. There's a bit of a bug with receiving blocks in, but I'm working that out right now. But yeah, so Jedd has an older version of this file. I've added a couple more things, and let's also just add a couple more wine bottles for fun. I'll put one there, and I'll put one there. And then the way you send, oh, and here the UI is just, you get your streams. You can search for streams. You can swap accounts with this button over here. It'll show you whatever accounts you have locally. And you can swap branches using this little thing right here. And then at the moment, the sending is just sending your entire selection. So let's select, Jedd, if you can pin in, oh yeah, you're in a nice view where you can see some of the missing tables. I think we've added this. And so yeah, we just select whatever we would like to send. And hit the send button. So let's go into the main branch. And there you go, easy as that. I'll show you on the viewer just for fun, so you can have a look. There you go. I can paste this stream as well into the chat if you would like to poke around at the meshes and the blocks.
Excellent.
And then off to Jedd to receive that back in Unreal.
Yeah, so I'm going to receive now Izzy's changes to the interior layout and the exterior facade. And that should be just a process of importing it. And something a little bit special is going to happen as well is we can see that materials have been applied automatically. And this is a workflow that I've been working on in Unreal. And that's setting up the ability for material overrides. So we can see how we've set up nice textured materials overriding the speckled converted materials, because a lot of users don't want to send really high quality textured materials through Speckle yet, and it's something that we don't fully support yet. And so one of the big use cases is using Quicksort Bridge, which is Unreal's provided library of materials, really high quality, 8K scanned images that's free to use for inside Unreal. So that's one of the, I suppose, big components of Unreal. There we are. So some nice high quality materials. I've got a big library of that and assets as well. So yeah, so now we've received Izzy's changes. It's as simple as re-rendering our scene. If I pilot the actor again, then we can see we've made a very rapid change to our scene, and Archvis is kind of integrating well with that workflow. So I'm not sure how nice this looks on the hop-in with compression and stuff, but
it's not the greatest FPS, but it still looks
yes,
from my end.
I have while testing, I quickly did a render of this, so I can post that in, or can even do the share the YouTube. I think that has slightly higher bit rate. I've got the link. Do you need to enable it in the stream settings?
Yeah, give me 1 second.
Okay. So just battling with hop-in for a second, but yeah, hopefully we can show you this quick render as a video. But yeah, are there any questions in the meantime? See the nice textures and Izzy's new bottles. So not everything has a custom texture, just certain things.
Okay, it should be enabled.
Okay, I need to refresh, don't I?
I need to refresh, yeah.
Okay, and hopefully this looks a little better. It's saying it's an invalid URL. Hold on. I think it needs the URL like this. There we are. Okay. Hopefully this looks...
that's much smoother, yeah.
Excellent. So,
Of course, if you wanted to, you could hook this up with some sort of script or some webhook service where maybe every time you make a commit on a stream on a specific branch, this would re-render, and then your scene will just update in real time, which would be great when you're doing some sort of live demos, or if you're just kind of prototyping and wanting to exchange data very quickly and seamlessly.
There's a question in chat. I think sending textures might be optional. So at the moment, Speckle supports sending PBR materials through Speckle for a few different connectors. We're still working on complete support. I think Revit has some problems at the moment, but so that's just like a base color, roughness, metallicness, opacity, that kind of thing. We're looking into supporting textured materials sending through Speckle as well. So that's something that you might see coming up soon. But in the Archvis connectors, so in Unity and Unreal, we've got workflows that kind of ameliorate that. So allowing you to override Speckle's materials with your own custom ones is pretty standard with how tools like Lumion work, I think, as well. So that's one of the biggest use cases so far of Unreal.
We've got another question in the Q&A from David Morgan, and he's asking you, Jedd, have there been any ideas for Archvis Speckle objects? I remember Jedd talking about streaming Blender camera paths at one point.
Yeah, so I just want to mention that I mentioned that before starting working for Speckle. So that was excited young Jedd, not necessarily Speckle Jedd, but that's fine. So yeah, we're working on. I think not at all. I've just got more used to Unreal now and working with that. So I think on the immediate agenda, I suppose, is we want to get lighting supported and cameras supported. Sending those to and from Speckle, so we can see that being useful in something like Blender, where you might have an animation team or someone who's familiar with creating animations in Blender, and wants to kind of transfer that over to Unreal or Unity, and we want to support the kind of the camera views there, and also camera views from Revit and Rhino as well. We're also looking at lighting, although lighting is kind of one of those things that every connector would support it slightly differently. Every target software has its own kind of concept of how lights work, so that's going to present some technical challenges, but definitely is on the list of things to do.
Yeah, and all this stuff is pretty high priority, at least on our side of Speckle Land. So within this is like on the roadmap within the next few sprints. We'll be focusing on this.
Yeah, I don't want to kind of corner myself into committing to this too hard, but I think something like lighting and cameras will be very easy to implement and probably be done next sprint, I think.
Famous last words. Don't do it, Jedd.
I think cameras like that are already sort of supported. I think in Unity they worked at one point, and then yeah, so I think it's just Unreal that needs to catch up on that, and I think from Blender or something like that. So
yeah, totally doable. It's just we haven't prioritized it in the past, but now we're kind of clearing the decks and we're kind of getting to this stage where we're kind of wanting to invest more time into this. And then we've got another question from Tillman Reinhardt. How many material mappings did you have to set up for this example?
Yeah, so there's going to be a tutorial to come on how to do this how to use Speckle for this material overriding, but a quick rundown of it now is the way that it works is you can override a converted material either by the Speckle ID, so that's the ID of the render material object, or by the name of the material. So some of our users have libraries of materials that they use within their models, and they use that, say, between SketchUp and they want to bring it into Unity or Unreal, and the name matches, so they just want to drag them into one big list. So that's the two ways of doing this. For this example, I've overridden by ID, and so hopefully if I screen share, I realized I wasn't screen sharing then. So on the Speckle Unreal Manager, we can see that for the Speckle ID overriding, we have these materials. So that's maybe 20 materials overridden, and it's not all the materials in the scene. I think there's considerably more. But these are the converted materials, and then these are my overridden ones. But these aren't materials that I've kind of made. I've just imported them from Quicksort Bridge. So that process is quite simple. You can kind of just download a material, export it into Unreal. Of course, this is taking a while because my internet's a bit slow, but that's fine. And then you can drag and drop that into this list. This is a workflow that we're kind of still experimenting with. There's probably a few ways that we can make it a little bit easier. But just adding to this list, I can then drag and drop that new material in. If I can remember the name of it, I think it was concrete floor tiles. There we are. And then find the Speckle ID of the material. So that's pretty easy. It's just in this list here. So for some reason, if I wanted my green glass bottles to be made from concrete floor tiles, it's as simple as switching that out and then re-importing the stream. And then that's something else we're looking into making a little bit easier, is instead of re-importing the streams, applying them a little bit more smartly. But hopefully now we can see that these bottles are made from concrete floor tiles. So
Lovely.
if that's what you want, then that's what we can do.
And for reference, there's a similar thing going on in Blender. So if you receive a material, a regular Speckle material with a name that matches a Blender material name, the Blender material will override the material that's coming in. So if you're building your model in Revit or SketchUp or maybe Grasshopper, and you add a render material to it with a specific name that matches Blender, you won't have to do any mapping on the Blender side. It'll just happen for you. Cool. Do we have any more questions?
Excellent. I think the last thing that I want to just quickly shout out is if you like what you saw today and you're interested in checking out perhaps the Unreal or Unity connectors, the Blender or the SketchUp connectors. I think SketchUp isn't quite public yet, but please head to our GitHub and start our repos.
I'm pasting links right now. Moments.
I suppose if I can get the Unity connector up, we could do a quick demo of Unity. We have 10 minutes, so
Sure, do a quick demo.
Hope there's no local changes that might break this demo. This is a very risky demo.
No prep, just YOLO.
It'll take a second to come up, but oh, it's re-importing the entire project. This is going to take forever. Okay, I should have been a bit more prepared with a Unreal Unity demo. Sorry. So, oh, okay, we're actually here. So,
Too bad.
This is an unscheduled Unity demo that may have many side effects because I may have made some local changes that broke things. This is probably not what's to date. So if I add a receiver, the Unity connector works slightly nicer in the sense that you can receive through this nice fancy UI stuff, which I think is Matteo's work. It could be David's. I'm sure David will let me know in the chat. He definitely did the editor stuff, which is much appreciated.
David, do some bragging in the chat. Nice.
So yeah, that's the Unity connector. Nothing perhaps new to show here because I haven't got material set up for this demo yet. But if you had materials with the same name, they would have been applied. So I think also this has some of the rooms are being generated as geometry. So excellent. Any other questions?
I don't think so. So I guess we can just wrap this up a few minutes early. Thank you, everybody, for joining us for this wonderful demo. And thank you, Jedd, for that fantastic little demo from Unreal.